Good morning. It's me, Tara, the Mudcreek Stitcher, and I'm back for another Bible study. I can speak barely, but I can speak. We are in the book of John. If you have stopped by, let me just make sure my volume's up. We're in the book of John, and we are ready to start chapter 9. It is John MacArthur's book we are using to teach us through, and some commentary, which I forgot my cell phone, so I don't have any commentary. So you're going to get all Tara commentary, unless I can find something way better than me. But yeah, I had been sick this last week. My granddaughter was super sick last weekend for her birthday party, and she managed to get 4 of us sick. It was pretty bad. It's not her fault, but it was a bad germ, and she's been to the doctor 3 times already in 1 week, and on a nebulizer, steroids. Yeah, it was really bad. So happy birthday to her, huh? So anyways, everybody's slowly on the mend, and we hope, I'm hoping we have super immune strength when Thanksgiving and Christmas rolls around, because we all got so sick already, but you know how that works. All right, I hope you guys are doing well, and we're going to just pick up where we left off. We are in chapter 9 in the book of John. In chapter 8, we ended at where Jesus declared himself the I am. In chapter 8, verse 59, Jesus said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." And of course, they all wanted to stone him because they are so full of hatred and unbelief, which Jesus made it very clear he came to divide, not to make peace necessarily, because people are going to love him and believe in him, people are going to hate him, and that's just how it is. So we're on to chapter 9 now. All right, and once again, in case you're wondering, John MacArthur uses the New King James Version for his scripture in here, and I also am using, in my own Bible, the New King James Version as well. It's a new Bible I got for my son last year, and I never opened it up, and now I've opened it up, and it's a lot of fun. All right, enough babbles. Let me begin. Now, as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him." So it does say here, John MacArthur says, the Jews commonly regarded suffering as proof of sin in the victim's life. Sin can result in suffering, but this is not always the case. So sometimes it's just, we live in a sinful world. Verse 4, "I must work the works of him," capital H, so God, "who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." So the night is coming is a reference to the seeming triumph of evil during Christ's arrest and crucifixion. And he says in verse 5, "As long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world." And that goes back to the tabernacle, to the lampstand, and all that. I'm still in all of that in Numbers right now. Still talking about sacrifices in the tabernacle and keeping the lampstand lit. It has to be lit all the time because it's representing Jesus, who is the light. Verse 6, "When he had said these things, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay. And he said to him, 'Go, wash in the pool of Siloam,' which is translated sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously had seen that he was blind said, 'Is not this he who sat and begged?' Some said, 'This is he.' Others said, 'He is like him.' He said, 'I am he.' Therefore they said to him, 'How were your eyes opened?' And he answered and said, 'A man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, "Go to the pool of Siloam and wash." So I went and washed, and I received sight.' Then they said to him, 'Well, where is he?' And he said, 'I do not know.' They brought him, who formerly was blind, to the Pharisees. Now it was a Sabbath, when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Dun, dun, dun. Uh-oh. So, sidebar, real quick here. So, once again, the Sabbath was the holy day. Our Sabbath is Sunday. And theirs would have been Saturday, the Jewish people. Actually, it still is. But it was a command not to work on the Sabbath, not to do a job. So I just read this morning, or was it yesterday morning? One of those mornings, that a man, after God had just told all of Israel all the laws through Moses that you are not to work on the Sabbath, this is a holy day, a day of rest. There was a man, they don't say what tribe he's from or anything, who was picking up sticks. And so the people had already just gotten in a whole bunch of trouble, so they were all paranoid. And they saw him picking up sticks, and they grabbed him and took him to Moses and said, what do we do with him? And then God's like, I told you this is my holy day, so take him out and stone him. So they did, and killed him. So that would have been the very first lesson, and a strong lesson about working on the Sabbath. But here, keep in mind, Jesus isn't picking up sticks. He is healing. There is a difference. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. He said to them, he put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Therefore, some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath. Others said, how can a man who is a sinner do such signs? And there was a division among them. They said to the blind man again, what do you say about him, because he opened your eyes? And he said, he is a prophet. Oh, no, he didn't ask it. He said, he is a prophet. But the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received his sight, until they called the parents of him who had received his sight. Verse 19, and they asked them, saying, is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see? And his parents answered them and said, we know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But by what means he now sees, we do not know, or who opened his eyes, we do not know. He is of age. Ask him. He will speak for himself. His parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had agreed already that if anyone confessed that he was Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue. So they're pretty much shoving their son, going, yeah, we know Jesus did the miracle, but here, you say it. You go. They don't want to be kicked out of the synagogue, because the way I understand it is if they get kicked out of the synagogue, their entire life, people who care for them, help them, and all that would be gone. It'd be gone. And so, that would be horrific. You wouldn't have any of those people you've always relied on your whole life. So therefore his parents said, he is of age, ask him. So they again called the man who was blind and said to him, give God the glory. We know that this man is a sinner. And that's a capital M, and they're meaning Jesus. This means that the authorities wanted the man to own up and admit the truth that Jesus was a sinner, because he violated their traditions and threatened their influence. So doing a miracle was not a sin on the Sabbath, but they have turned it into a sin. He answered and said, whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I know, that though I was blind, now I see. So, amazing grace right there. Then they said to him again, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? And he answered them, I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples? Can you imagine how they would have reacted? Oh, they would have been, they'd be like, oh, how dare they? I don't know if they said that, but just imagine how they acted. And then they reviled him and said, you are his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. Pretty sure that's how it happened. We know that God spoke to Moses. As for this fellow, we do not know where he is from. And the man answered and said to them, why, this is a marvelous thing that you do not know where he is from. Yet he has opened my eyes. Now we know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, he hears him. Since the world began, it has been unheard of that anyone opened the eyes of one who was born blind. If this man, capital M, were not from God, he could do nothing. And that's super funny that that man did that. The healed man, John MacArthur says here, demonstrated more spiritual insight and common sense than all the religious authorities combined, who sat in judgment of Jesus and him. And that's true. He's just like, how is it you don't know? You are supposed to be the men of God. You're supposed to teach us, but you don't know, but I can figure it out. Yeah. Verse 34. They answered and said to him, you were completely born in sins. And are you teaching us? Now remember, that goes back to, they thought if you had something wrong with you, an infirmity, blindness, or whatever, it's because of your sin, which he was born like that. So they're like, you caused yourself to be blind. So, how dare you teach us? And they cast him out. So they did what his parents feared. They didn't want to happen to him, but they let it happen to their own kid. Jesus heard that they had cast him out. And when he found him, he said to him, do you believe in the Son of God? He answered and said, who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? And Jesus said to him, you have both seen him, and it is he who is talking with you. And then he said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. And Jesus said, for judgment I have come into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be blind. Then some of the Pharisees who were with him heard these words and said to him, are we blind also? And Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you say, we see, therefore your sin remains. So I'm not sure where these Pharisees, they must be always hovering around Jesus, following him wherever he goes. I'm not sure. Although Jesus, I guess, had been outside the temple. He'd left the temple, so maybe they're all hovering around there. I'm not sure. So, but it's interesting, he says, for judgment I've come into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be blind. Okay, so questions. I'm just going to go for some more questions here. I'm going to see if there's anything. Some of these go back to chapter 8. Here's one. As the self-proclaimed light of the world, Jesus speaks blunt truth to the darkened hearts of sinful people. Will we hear and obey? Or, like the Pharisees, will we resist and reject the hard truth of God? In what area of your life do you sense the Lord speaking uncomfortable words to you, and what will you do? So Jesus is saying he is the light. He is the lampstand from the tabernacle. He speaks blunt truth to the darkened hearts of sinful people. So he's told the Pharisees, because you see me, you are blind, pretty much. You're right. You're judging me when I am the one who judges. So they are rejecting him, just as so many of us today reject Jesus still to this day. And we have all this proof. We have all this biblical proof. So much archaeological evidence right now in Israel coming out. So much proving every part of the Bible, which it has been for hundreds and hundreds of years, but more and more, it just seems like the rocks are just cracking open and just revealing God's truth. And yet, his truth is very hard for people to hear, and they reject it. So in what areas of your life do you sense the Lord speaking uncomfortable words to you? Is he telling you to look at something you don't want to look at your life, sin, at people around you? What is he asking you to look at? And what are you going to do about it? Personally, I would start praying, and I do. And I think we all do. Pray, pray, pray. As somebody shared in the comments, thank you for sharing, prayer. It is so important. And that's where we can really hear God. And we might hear those uncomfortable words. that will pull us out and guide us where we need to go. So it says, when we preach, teach, and witness that Christ is the only way to God, we're not proclaiming our own view of right religion, but God's revelation of truth. We do not proclaim the narrow way simply because we're already in it, or because it happens to suit our temperament, or because we're a bigot and exclusive. We proclaim the narrow way because it's God's way, and God's only way for people to find salvation and eternal life. We proclaim a narrow gospel because Jesus said, I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he shall be saved. And that is very hard for some people to hear. Very hard. Okay, and I'm just seeing if there's anything else I could share really quick. I really don't want to start chapter 10, so this might just be a teeny tiny little study today, if y'all are okay with that. And then I'll start chapter 10 next time. Just looking in here, I'm just looking to see if there's any little nuggets in my study Bible. For chapter 9, verses 1 through 7, it says in the study Bible, while Jesus responded to the man who was born blind with compassion, the disciples consulted Jesus as if simply discussing a theological issue. The Jews often attributed physical limitation to punishment for wrongdoing. So was the blindness the result of the man's personal sin? In their minds, the disability could be attributed to one of three types of sin. 1, prenatal sin. An idea drawn from the story of Jacob and Esau in Genesis 26. The Jews believed that sinning in the womb was possible. Wow. Number 2, some pre-existing sin of the man's. And number 3, generational sin, a punishment for the wrongdoing of the man's parents. Jesus' response in verse 3 resolves the issue and dispels any question related to blame. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. Wow. Yeah. Isn't that something? And I just read that God, he just in Numbers, he's just told all the Israelites, you're going to walk around for 40 years. And it'll be your children who will get to come into the promised land. But he talks about how sin will carry through generations. And I see that. I mean, it's so true. I know I'm starting to babble, but it's so true. I look at my mother and father's parents and just all it's not drama, but just the brokenness of both sets of parents and how that brokenness filtered down into my own parents, which then filtered down into us. And it does. Sin can be very generational. And it's only God who can pull us away from that generational sin when we let him take the wheel, right? Jesus, take the wheel. Sorry, had to do it. But it's true. Once Jesus takes the wheel, that generational sin, it's broken. And you can finally move on and move your family beyond that old sin. I always think about that. Okay, short Bible study today, but it's Labor Day weekend, and I'm sure a lot of you aren't even listening to me, and you're like, whatever. So, anyways, thanks for popping by if you did. I hope you get some good crafting time in. If not crafting, I hope you get some good family time in, and I will see you next weekend. So God bless, share prayers, and let us all keep praying for each other. Thanks again, you guys. We'll see you again.